Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Adam Michlin. I am a computer science teacher at Red Bank Regional High School in Little Silver, New Jersey. I also work as an adjunct at Drew University, and one of my specialties is computer security, capture the flags. So this all started with me in 2013, and I'll be honest, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, that's almost 10 years ago. I can't believe I've been doing this for 10 years. And I was teaching down in Florida, and I was trying to get my students more into computer security. And as you all have experienced, one of the biggest problems you have is that you don't want them using your school as a target. And so what a lot of people do is they simply say, okay, well, we'll do defensive computer security and only defensive computer security. I wanted to teach offense security, and a wonderful thing called Pico CTF came about. Now, to give you some background, and I realize a lot of you are like, well, what's a CTF? But bear with me. At the time, a CTF was a college thing mostly, and it was a competition, and it was a bunch of college kids. Usually they got together in person, and they would be given challenges, things literally to break into, computers to break into, websites to break into, and it would be a competition to see who could break in. And the way you would prove that you break in is you would find a flag, and the flag is usually something in a specific format that's pure text. This grew and grew and grew, and then the wonderful people at Carnegie Mellon started Pico CTF, which was specifically aimed at high school kids. The timing was perfect. I used it. It was what I call the golden age. It was a wonderful learning curve. My beginners loved it. My advanced kids loved it. It was great for differentiation when I had 40 kids in one classroom of every level, which was one of the fun things about Florida. All was wonderful. Fast forward a couple of years, Pico CTF changed a bit, and it became a much more of a for the advanced kids things, although they've come to back off on that in the last year or two. And so I'd always dreamed of having something. Well, the problem was Pico CTF was great for my advanced kids, but I really wanted something to get my beginning kids to become advanced kids, and it wasn't serving their purpose. So about last year, I got the opportunity to create my own CTF. I had a wonderful opportunity. And by the way, I do work for CTF.io. I'm a challenge writer. This is not a commercial, although we do host CTFs if you want to create your own. And I got a chance to host one, and we created a bunch of problems, or challenges as we call them. And I realized that this would be a great opportunity for not just the students, but also the teachers, because I get this a lot from other teachers. I really want to do CTFs, I don't know where to begin. Or my kids really want to do CTFs, they don't know where to begin, and they just did Pico CTF and got one question and then threw up their hands and gave up. And so I talked to my boss at CTF.io and said, hey, can we put these easy introductory problems challenges up for free and host them on the website? And he said, absolutely. So that's what I'm going to show you today. The connection with Coding Rooms is that I'm actually not a paid customer of Coding Rooms, although I'm a huge fan of Coding Rooms, and I'll explain why that is. I've been using command line based cloud services for CS education well before the web platforms were capable of doing what the amazing things that Coding Rooms does now. So I'm pretty happy with my cloud-based solutions, but I also recognize that for teachers who don't have the IT background, especially with cloud-based Linux, that itself can be an insurmountable mountain when dealing with CTFs and computer security in general. And so what I'm going to try to highlight in the process of doing this is not only all these challenges intended to be cross-platform, even Chromebook friendly, but I'm going to try to show all the opportunities you can use Coding Rooms, which if you don't know, really has a command line Linux underpinning that all you can use, all your students can do free of charge. Thank you, Coding Rooms. So I'm going to see if I can integrate that into how I solve the problems. But just going forward, I do want everybody to know that these challenges are designed to be completely platform agnostic. But I do need to be clear that if you start going into the more advanced Pico CTF and other CTFs, that generally the expectation is Linux command line comfort at the bare minimum. But this is kind of starting, hopefully getting them to get started. So I've talked a lot, and I don't like to talk a lot. So I'm going to open up the floor for any questions, either in the chat. Jim, yeah, I absolutely love Pico CTF. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without them. I'm gonna see if I can fix the camera while I'm at it. Yeah, that's what I get for getting a fancy camera. Okay, any questions from the attendees? Okay, this is meant to be interactive. This is not meant to be just watch me, although you are welcome to simply just watch me. I am actually going to go through the challenges and show you how to solve them. This isn't necessarily how I would use it in the classroom. I've used it as a ninth grade, a digital citizenship thing where I actually walk the students through all the challenges. I've also used it, in a more advanced class for somebody who's finished with their work and wants something else to do. So you can kind of use this as like a exploring thing, let them figure it out on their own, or you can use this as literally a direct instruction, explicit instruction kind of activity. So we're going to kind of do the explicit instruction, but you're really encouraged to participate. And I think, let's see, am I able to put this link in the, so this is the website. So you can play along. A couple quick things about the website. This specific website has no ability to keep track of score. So I'm seeing in the chat, CTF, but I was not sure how to use it. That's probably the next training. And maybe we can talk to coding rooms about it. Maybe I'll talk to CTF DDIO. I'm sure we could arrange to have a training on how to create them. It actually turns out to be super, super easy. Unfortunately, I can't quite get into that right now. Okay, so if you're playing along, you should see something looks like, and I have not used them in a year, so please bear with me. Okay. Okay, everybody should now see my screen. If you don't, please let me know, although of course I've lost chat, which is always fun about Zoom. Oh, there we go, there's chat. Awesome, Joe. That's great to hear. For those of you not reading chat, they're going to try to make coding rooms more easy to create CTFs and cyber setups. That's just wonderful. The more, the merrier. Okay, so this starts as easy as you can. Oh, I was going to explain why there's no scoring, because that's one of the first questions I get is we want to keep score. There is a law about kids under 13. Many of you may be familiar with that. And there's a very strict law about collecting data. One of the biggest requests I've gotten over the last 10 years was middle school teachers saying, I want to do CTFs, I want to do CTFs, I want to do CTFs. I went to my boss and said, can we make this middle school friendly? He said, absolutely we can, but they're not allowed to use it. And I said, but what do you mean? Well, and then he explained the laws, and I won't bore you with the laws, but they're extremely strict for extremely good reasons. And so we set it up so that we can't collect data even if we want to. There's no way to log in. There's no way to register an account on this. Although, of course, if you're running your own CTF, you can have accounts registered for competitions purposes. So this is actually really nice in that there's absolutely no data that can be collected. So for those of you who don't know what a CTF and like has been going on and saying CTF, 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 let's actually do a challenge. The easiest challenge is the Hello World. I won't read it for you, but the key thing is what each challenge is doing is trying to find a flag, and I will actually highlight the flag here. This one actually gives you the flag, and the idea isn't so much to challenge you to find the flag as much as to help you understand what constitutes a flag. It is text. It almost always starts with a keyword, known text, plain text, for those of you who know encryption, which actually plays into a lot of the challenges. In this case, CTFD.io, when we run a challenge, we generally put the keyword being flag. Pico CTF is, of course, well known for making it always be Pico CTF. And then generally the flag goes inside the curly brackets. So you can actually copy that and paste that. And of course, this is the super, super easy one, just trying to get you and your students comfortable with this idea of finding a flag and putting the flag in and knowing that like lowercase h is not going to work instead of capital H and lowercase w and things like that. Brackets instead of curly braces, whatever you want to call them, depending on what part of the pond you're on. That all are details that usually stymie students in the more advanced CTFs. So They get this, they get a nice win. You'll see it says correct, but again, it does not keep track. We do not keep any data on any students, so you can pretty safely use this with any of your students at any age without having to worry about legal issues. Okay, we'll move on. One of the big things about computer security, believe it or not, and maybe you're all computer science teachers, so you probably would believe it, is Google. So the next challenge is actually simply a Google search. Now, we don't actually say this, but what usually happens is the challenges will have hints. In fact, in this one, I give about 17 hints so that you can find it out. So I'm going to give everybody a chance to try to do this without me. I give you about 10 minutes. You're not my high school students. I give you about 3 minutes to take a look through this, and some of you may know it right off the bat. And I have to remember how to spell the last name. But for example, we can do a Google search, because I am forgetting how to spell his name. And there we go. Copy. Now, the mistake that most people will make at this point is they found the name and they will paste the name, and then they'll submit. Remember, the flag always has to, and it even has a little remember here, always has to have flag, bracket, bracket. So if I take that, I do this, it'll accept it. Copy it so I can show you one other thing. Flag, Dijkstra. Submit, it accepts it. But of course, if I do this, as I showed you before, it doesn't work. But also notice if I do this, it won't accept it. Now, just a quick thing on the design of these competitions. My boss and I have a debate ongoing for about a year now. He takes the approach that he accepts the lowercase and the uppercase when he designs a challenge. I don't like that. I think that the student, but I come from a computer science background, it really is important to understand that capital D Dijkstra is different than lowercase d Dijkstra. And so that is actually something that's configurable within CTF-D.io. You can actually have case insensitive, although I don't use it on this particular competition. And then we get, again, noticing it's not keeping track, and that's okay. I mean, none of this is supposed to be secret. This isn't a competition. This isn't something where we're trying to hide the answer or even trick the answer for the students. This is all about giving everybody a baseline to start doing the more advanced competitions. Asking ye shall receive, of course, is a pun on ASCII, American Standard Code for Information Interchange. Love to put history into my challenges. I'm well known for that. Bob Beamer, of course, is the inventor of ASCII. And so we can actually take this hexadecimal code, copy it. There's a link to a hex ASCII converter. We put the ASCII in. Why is it? There we go. My internet's being slow. We convert, and we don't paste it twice. And you will see this is where we start to get to a real challenge. This would, of course, be much more difficult if I didn't explicitly link to who invented it, what it is, and how to decode it. And that's actually what they would, a very similar, more advanced problem would be to just give them this code and they have to figure out it is ASCII. Of course, the purpose of this particular website is not to freak them out, not to scare them. It's entirely to get them hooked on the idea of a computer security capture the flag. So we take the decoded flag and we submit. Next challenge, baseball. I am not actually going to do this for you. I'm going to assume everybody here can do binary, octal, and decimal, and hexadecimal. CTFs love the bases. And what I particularly love about this is a lot of us teach base 2, base 8, base 16 in our classes. And I know I, as a teacher, am always worried, like, okay, so they know how to do it, but why they don't know why to care. And so one of the neat things about computer security and we'll capture the flags, but by computer by extension is there are a ton of cases where particularly hexadecimal becomes extremely important in terms of how you do challenges. And so it's nice to reinforce that they can actually use those skills in something other than, you know, just the homework assignment or the AP test. So I'm going to trust everybody can find a binary to decimal converter and the octal to decimal term and a hexadecimal, add them up, make sure it's in the flag. You can do this one on your own. K&R is another Google challenge. Another opportunity I love to put anything I can in computer history. So the answer is Kernighan and Thompson and Ritchie all worked at labs. Notice this one's a little bit less pushing them towards the answer and a little bit more trying to get them to just go to Google and do the research. Extensions live. This is where things start to get interesting, and this is where coding rooms is golden. So you all know, but most of your students may not know that just because I call a file a .jpeg does not mean it's a JPEG. And one of the favorite things that, well, I will say CTFs do, but also scammers do, is you get that file that's been attached from, you know, from your brother, mother, cousin, best friend, and you trust them implicitly, and it says it's a .this. You double click on it, and it turns out it's a .that. Or it's hiding. You know, they'll do flag.jpeg.exe. And for those of you who don't know Windows exe is an executable. You've now given the attacker your entire computer. So one of the things that we're trying to do, and this is a digital citizenship thing and a computer security thing, is get students to recognize that simply naming a file with a .3-letter extension does not have anything to do with what the file actually is. And now this is where I'm going to try. I don't usually use coding rooms, but I'm going to try to use coding rooms because it's awesome. I'm going to download the file. Show in folder. You probably won't see my folder. I'm going to go over to my workspace. So now I will do a quick commercial for coding rooms. I'm not a paying customer. I use them all the time, though. We do a lot of collaboration with CTFD.io, and I do a lot of things with my classes with them. I don't use the paid tier, and what I will tell you is the customer service is so amazing, and I don't pay them a dime. The fact that I don't pay them a dime and the customer service is amazing, I can only imagine how great the customer service is when I pay them money. So I do a lot of work, actually do a lot of work on challenges. You can see I have a bunch of weird things here. I'm just going to go to one of my spaces. The point here isn't necessarily show the coding, but actually give you an insight into the Linux terminal you have right there in front of you. Which is so mind-blowing for me because when I started this, I had to put something in my classroom that was a Linux server that I literally found in the trash and restored. And then 5 years later, there were these cloud services, and then you could log in by text, and now I can have it literally in the browser. So if you haven't seen this, and I apologize, I've been teaching all morning, so I don't know if you've seen this or not. Joe, have they seen this feature yet?
A little bit here and there, but we haven't dug into the IDE yet, so.
Yeah, well, not even the ID, but the fact that when I click on this is so cool. I just turned my ID into, check this out, a full-blown Linux machine. So I'm going to go to the command line, and I can do all my fun things in the command line. You can see I've been doing some things. Let's see if I can break something. Now I can go into all these places, see if I can break it. Of course I can't because I have security, just like all things. But let's see if I can do this. I can now minimize this. And what's really cool is I'm actually going to abuse the file system a little bit way it wasn't intended, although I think it's going to become intended this way because they're working on that, is I'm going to upload a file. And let's see, I have my downloads. And I have my flag.jpg. I'm uploading it. I'm not sure if you can see this. Oh, it's not liking it, Joe. What did I do wrong? Failed to create non-text flag file.jpg. Joe, am I doing something wrong? I tested with
What is that? What is that hidden thing? It doesn't like what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I could rename it to text, but well, yeah. So let's rename it to text. Bear with me 1 second. I'll do that. We'll have to talk about that. No worries.
No, I'm curious even what's going on there.
Well, so everybody knows I've been Joe and I have been talking for the last couple of months about all the crazy things I want to upload that it was not intended for, and I've been absolutely in awe. And every single time he comes back and Andrew's like, oh yeah, we can do that. We can do that. So we'll have to add fake text files labels JPEGs. Maybe that's not a good idea. So let me rename it to text. Of course, the pun of the joke is it is entirely a text file. The kids, of course, don't know that. So let's try uploading it as file.text, flag.text. So now the key thing here is you can, of course, see it in the IDE, but a more advanced problem wouldn't be this simple. So watch what I can do. I can go back to this cool Linux virtual machine, free Linux machine, and I can go. Oops. Oh, my. Oh. How did I end up in the MySQL directory, Joe?
Just see user code is that default directory. You just cd/user code. So
now you'll see I have my flag.text. I can do things like I can cat flag.text. Obviously, this is the trivial problem where we're turning a JPEG, named JPEG to a .txt. But the key point is anything that you can do on a Linux machine, with some exceptions, which I'll get to in a second, and Joe and I will talk about that. There's some security reasons that it doesn't do everything. You can now get in a completely user-friendly browser that costs you absolutely nothing, because none of this is part of the stuff you've all been hearing about all day. This is just the tools that you can use, and you can use without charge. So that is how you do that challenge. Let me see if I can get out of this. Okay, we'll go back to our challenges, and we'll come back to that in a second. So we get to super base, and this one is a little trickier. So this is something called base 64. And the CTFs, especially Pico CTF, use this a lot. And base 64 comes from a time when we had to try to put binary files through email and other text formats. And so all of base 64 is the ability to turn a can rename the file, including the extension from the three-dot menu next to the file name. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So the first thing to know, and this has driven me nuts in CTFs for years, if you see the two dot equals at the end, and this is a pro tip that it can make the difference because they use them a lot. The two equals are padding that indicates it is base 64. Base 64 is not encryption, it's encoding. It's simply a way to take a binary file and put it into a text format that, for example, you could copy and paste into an email. Back in the day when email only did text, this is before rich text email and things like that. So this is just a matter. Notice we're taking some of the training wheels off at this point. We're not saying, here's the base 64 converter, but you can easily find base 64 decoders. 64 decoder. You go here. The first one's just fine. We put here. You decode. And you get a flag. This shows up a lot as a sub-problem of a CTF, because a lot of times they want to put a flag in so-called plain text in visible form, and they don't want it to say flag. And so one of their favorite tricks, Pico CTF does this all the time, and I've argued with them for years about it, is that they will take, especially an easy problem, and they will base 64 encode it. The advanced kids totally get base 64, see it immediately. Your beginners don't necessarily see that. So this is a really important tool, not necessarily that they're going to get a pure base 64, but this is a common trick that CTF challenge writers use to hide the flag.text, the plain text that is flag, or Pico CTF, or whatever the competition is using, so that they can have the text without you actually being able to see it. grep is your kinsman. So I tried this, I set this up, and I really tried to set it up so that the students would have to use the good old grep, global regular expression processor. And then all the kids quickly realized you could just download it and do a find for flag. And so, you know, you don't really need grep for this problem, although I'm going to use grep for this problem. I'm actually going to go to coding rooms. I've actually prepared this one. I'm going to go back to my terminal. I can actually do this. By the way, you can interact with what I just showed you. If you don't want to have that full-blown Linux machine, you can use the console. You'll notice. And you'll see I have hamlet.txt. I can cat it. And it literally is the plain text of Hamlet. And then if I want to find a specific pattern, I can use grep. And I want to reiterate, this is all built into Linux and built into the Coding Room's Linux image. So I can do grep flag hamlet.txt. And what that's doing is it's going through and finding anything that has the flag in it. This is obviously an easy one. There are much more difficult ones. And if you want to know more about grep, the RE in grep stands for regular expressions. They're super powerful. Probably could do a training on those unto themselves. So if you want to know about the fancy things you can do with grep, take a look at regular expressions. Okay. Moving on. Now we get to the slightly more advanced challenges, although again, we're really trying to baby the students into this. And this is, of course, the classic Caesar cipher, also known as shift cipher. I could go into a whole half-hour conversation about shift cipher, why they're not secure, but the safe thing to do is simply just copy the encoded text, go to Caesar cipher encoder, Caesar. Thank you, Google. And I don't like the first link, .fr, but I'll show it to everybody. This seems unnecessarily complicated. But you can use it. There's also, I do like the crypt key ones. And so we can take the so-called, we have plain text and ciphertext. Plain text is the English. So we'll put this aside. And you can see it immediately decodes it. And we could throw in some Shakespeare on top of it. Beware the Ides of March. Okay. So we do have a question about what exactly, yeah, so the CTF, the whole point of the CTF is to provide opportunities for students to do offensive computer security. That is, by offensive, I mean they literally have the opportunity to break into something, which usually gives, if not the teacher heartburn, it certainly gives the IT people at your school heartburn. And so the whole idea is to give them legitimate targets that they are allowed to beat on and break into to find these flags. As you can see, we start out with just giving them the flag, and then we slowly get to more complicated ways of doing it. But all of these are considered categorically offensive computer science. I mean, it's computer security. That is what is great about coding rooms, not hosted on your computer. Absolutely. That is what's great about all of this stuff, because even if you're not using coding room, you're mostly doing things in the cloud that you would, like if you did some of this later stuff we're doing, there's actually one problem we're going to get to that even coding room doesn't allow you to do. And I'll explain why that is in a second. Yes, absolutely. Your liability is next to none. Your safety is next to none. You're teaching kids offensive computer security without having to actually have them break anything on your school network, and that makes your IT people very, very happy. Show Me the Source is one of my favorite. I called in some favorites from my friends at System Source in Maryland. They're a wonderful museum. If you're in Maryland, please go visit them. They're awesome. This is simply, if you click on their website, looks like a normal website, but one of the cool things you can do in HTML is you can view page source, and if you do Control F and you search for flag, you will see flag, learn from history. So this is a common trick. In fact, it's one of the first rules of CTF is if you have a website, the first thing you do is you view source. And actually 9 times out of 10, if it's not the answer, it's the first step to get the answer. Okay, so what is a question? What is the workspace in coding rooms allowing you to type? Yes, so as Joe just answered in chat, this is literally a Linux machine. It's an entirely different operating system, and this is what blows my mind, since I've been doing this for a very long time. It's an operating system running in the cloud that you're accessing through the browser, which is just, it would not have been possible even 5 years ago. Gotta love Moore's Law. Hello, Zip. So this is a zip compression. We're hiding a flag inside of the zip. There is no trick here. We're not trying to, later on, there's lots of tricks with compression. And so we're going to download the flag.zip. We'll see if Coding Rooms lets me upload it. Go back to our fancy thing. Let's see if we can upload it. Woohoo. All right, we've got flag.zip. Now, there's a dozen different ways to solve this problem. I'm intentionally using the Linux command line on Coding Rooms, but please don't think you need to do this. In fact, none of the challenges on this require that, but do know that later more complicated competitions do require that. So you'll see we have flag.zip, and we can do, let's see if this is installed. That's it. And we do cat flag.zip. Sorry, it's .text. And compression is our friend. So it's interesting, Joe. It'll accept the zip file, which is really scary, but not the JPEG. For those who don't know, a great way to hide all sorts of evil things is to put it in a zip file. It's safe. It's a zip file. Then it's an executable, and boom, you're owned. So we copy this. We go back to our challenges, and that's not a little too much copying there. And we get flag compression as our friend. Are there any questions at this part? I see somebody's mentioned Cisco cybersecurity, CyberStart America. So CyberStart America is also a wonderful, wonderful way to get involved in this. But the one concern, I don't want to say concern, but the one thing that CyberStart doesn't do that I think is important for getting into the bigger world of capture the flags, CyberStart doesn't use this known text like flag this or Pico CTF this. They just have flags. And that actually, in many ways, makes some of their challenges harder than they need to be. I don't know why they didn't do that, but it is a little bit different than the traditional CTFs. It is, however, a wonderful thing, and our students love it. But Cyber Patriots is wonderful, but Cyber Patriots, this is important. Cyber Patriots is entirely defensive cybersecurity. They explicitly do not and will not do offensive cybersecurity, and this is offensive cybersecurity. We're literally breaking into things. Now we're intentionally putting up, things to be broken into, but we're absolutely intentionally breaking things. Zip line. So this is a little trickier. This is a this is a way to determine how files are, what they really are, by looking at the first couple bytes. And so I actually use a hex editor. This is a great opportunity to show the kids the hex editor. And they download the flag.zip. And yes, they're all flag.zip and flag.jpg. You have to keep track of that. We go to the hex editor. You open the file. And you'll see that some obnoxious person effed out all of that. That really, I didn't thought about that. Effed out really isn't probably the best thing to say to kids. Put F's in all the bytes that tell us what it actually is. And so we go back to our thing, and you'll see that in a more advanced version of this problem, if I were doing this in a competition, I probably wouldn't say a zip file should start with this hexadecimal. Please edit it so that it can do that. Remember, the whole purpose of this is to give them the tools so they can then figure that out. But to be clear, this is not going to be this direct in the competition. So we get the bytes. We go to our, I think I could just paste it. Overwrite the bytes. And now I should be able to save as. I always call it fix.zip. And then I don't think you'll be able to see this, but it does become a correct zip file, because I think I only have the one file shown. And I can show you that this actually does not, it does show the flag.txt, but for purposes, since we're running out of time, you can take my word for that, and you can certainly try it yourself. Almost there. Use the telnet force. I can't do on, this actually gets into the one thing you can't do on coding rooms, which I'm going to ask Joe, I guess is by design. I can't telnet out, Joe. You both don't have telnet installed, but I believe you don't allow any outbound network connections. Is that correct?
Only on the premium. So that's one thing that I guess would benefit you to have a paid subscription.
Really? So wait. So if I have I feel like I've set this commercial up. I did, I swear. So you're telling me that if I pay money, I can do the network problems? Okay, well that's cool. I may have to pay you money. So this is, I give the flag on this because this one is, I bent over backwards to make them all as multi-platform as possible. This was by far the hardest one. So this one, if you have not tried this, you can telnet to a specific address, actually tile.blinkenlights.nl. And I swear this is true. Actually, I can, let's see, can I show it to you? I'd have to, let me see if I can do this, because this is mind-blowing. Do we have time? And we don't have time. Do it. You will actually get to watch the Star Wars, the original Star Wars, A New Hope, in an ASCII version. And most people go, oh, it's like the first 10 minutes. It's the entire movie in animated ASCII. I actually use it. I have a little lesson I do called Stupid Command Line Tricks, and that's one of my favorite ones. tar, we can do this with coding rooms. I believe I can upload the flag.tar, so this should be a quick one. Tar is a utility to combine files without compressing them. Let's see if I can do a tar file. Upload the tar file. tar-xcf. Got to know that. Flag.tar. And of course, it's obnoxious. And it creates a bunch of files called not the flag, not the flag, definitely not the flag. And actually, I think coding rooms is going to make this easy to finish. I might break. I wonder if I'll break coding rooms with all these files. You can actually see. Well, this is fun. I've never tried this with coding rooms. There's about 100 files in there.
The guy on our back end is going to get mad in a minute.
Well, better I break it than somebody who's trying to really break it, right? So I think I can do this still. No, it's still thinking. Did not anticipate that. Oh, that poor thing is just going nuts. Well, while we wait for that, the last one, second to last one, requires the premium account apparently to you and coding, but you can do a Chrome plugin, and I actually have a Chrome plugin here set up. So all I'm going to do is do a netcat, which is just a generic network connection. I go to netcat, which is, by the way, this can be done with a Chromebook, assuming they can install apps. There's no way around having to install an app. And the app just crashed. Oops. You get what you pay for. Yeah, Chrome is really freaking out right now. Bear with me.
Maybe just close up, stab, refresh.
I think I broke. Oh, here it is. Do you see the ASCII cat and it says localhost, or is that a separate window?
That's a separate window.
Okay, let me reshare it. Okay, we'll just skip that one for now. And the last one, and then I will certainly take any questions in our few minutes left, is one of my favorites, is cookies. And I don't mean chocolate chip cookies, I mean web browser cookies. This is an example of a Docker solution. So one of the things that if you get more advanced into designing on CTFs, you can actually set up Docker, which are virtual machines that can run in the cloud specifically for challenges. So I'm actually got a web server running on CTFD.io's a dime that will let us do this. And so this has a cookie. I have a cookie editor. Let's see if that's going to work. My Chrome is not happy right now. And it's not installed, of course. No, I installed it. Cookie editor. This is the one I want. They all work, but this is the one I like. So if you don't know, sometimes your schools will not allow kids to install extensions. So sometimes they have to use their own account. It gets very complicated with school Chromebooks as well. Some schools let you do it, some schools don't. Okay, so let's see if we can make this work. We'll edit the cookie. You'll see the value is shall not pass, and I will just give you, this is like the most advanced challenge, but the way it's set up is all they have to do is change it to anything other than shall not pass, and it should let them in. But most of them will come up with pass. Click this, refresh the page, and you get a flag. And these are all, the whole idea is to give the kids a set of tools that get combined in the more advanced capture the flags. If I can get back to my challenges. We're just about out of time, but I certainly would love to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Adam. Any questions for Adam about CTFs?